to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
If people are doubting how far you can go so far you can't hear them anymore.
And Dale Hummel.
One person with passion is better than 40 people merely interested.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Good morning, I think is how we start this, Ryan, since it is an early Monday morning. And we're recording prior to the release, and maybe it'll pop up as we're doing current events of the possible Supreme Court decision on the ballot and many other things.
Yeah, you keep saying that. I'm saying it's not happening.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of our current events may no longer be current by Friday, is what I'm getting at.
Oh, they're definitely not going to be current because Super Tuesday is going to happen between now and then.
Yes. So should we just do a Beyond the Circus sooner than later?
The reason we're doing this now is because Clifton is busy with his real job. So I don't know how we're going to get a Beyond the Circus in when Clifton is in Daytona.
Yeah. When does he return? Do you know?
The 11th. Very long time from now.
This is a problem. Well, I have something that's going to continue to be current until justice is served.
Nothing is going to be current.
This will be current, and this is going to be something I bring up very often until justice is served. May I dive in?
Go right ahead. Just vent to your little heart.
Recently, as of this morning, last night, I'm not sure when this broke, but there's some more information about COVID-19 that was just uncovered. Nothing that in the big picture we didn't already suspect, but there was a grant in 2018. This had been 2 years before COVID broke, that was submitted to the U.S. government by the China Wuhan lab in conjunction with the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, via the Ego Health Alliance. They kind of organized all this. Now, the grant was not funded by the U.S. government as far as we know. It appears as though it was not funded directly by the U.S. government.
Who was it funded by?
Unclear. Well, I don't know how this funding all came to be, but and I can come back to that, and I have a theory. So this grant was basically, and when they submit a grant proposal, they put as much detail into what they're going to be doing as possible. This was a blueprint back in 2018, again from the Wuhan lab in conjunction with the University of North Carolina, a blueprint on how to create COVID-19. This was exactly, or more specifically, how to inject the furin cleavage site into a bat coronavirus to enable it to infect humans. So basically taking a virus that is found in nature by a bat and allowing that virus, a lot of viruses and diseases and pathogens aren't spread from one species to another, but this is going to open the door and allow it to be infected into humans, or cause harm to humans, we should say. So this was a blueprint laying all this out 2 years before COVID hit. That was a $14 million grant submission. I'm not sure who ended up funding this, but they claim at this point that the grant to the U.S. government or to those agencies was turned down. Now you see edits and submissions of different things that were going on in this process, I assume via emails. And there was one of the gentlemen, I believe at North Carolina, said that Americans would flip out if they knew we were doing research on this in our country, in their backyard. So the decision was made to conduct this at the Wuhan lab. So we didn't have this public issue. Before I get any further, why would we want to work with China? Why would North Carolina want to work with China on anything like this that can be this threatening to the entire planet? I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And they would submit a grant so our tax dollars can fund the development of this specific COVID-19 virus that was basically either accidentally released or intentionally released on the world. I have no idea how this is possible. So there's no question this was man-made virus that came out of the Wuhan lab. This is done. It seals. It gives you every bit of evidence that anybody could ever possibly want to clarify that this happened. So the entire pandemic could have been prevented if this research wouldn't have even happened, period. The fact that we knew this, that Fauci knew this, and other government officials, and those in North Carolina, gave them more incentive to cover it up, in my opinion. Obviously, they didn't want this out there, and they didn't want to look guilty that they knew this was research that was being conducted in China. I can't imagine they thought that would be favorable with the American public. And it also verifies that the fact that I have no idea what their justification was for doing this. But when somebody like Fauci stands up there and pushes, this was a naturally occurring thing out of the wet market, or basically from a bat to a human, that he knew this research was being conducted. He knew it was being conducted at the Wuhan lab. It doesn't take much to tie all that together. So there's no question he was aware, yet he continued to cover it up along with the others. That is, you want to talk about treason? You want to talk about punishment that should be administered to somebody like that? That is what I'm talking about, that justice should be served on those that were aware of this and covered it up. How many millions of people died? The entire world was disrupted for years.
No, not the entire world.
Not you.
No, North Korea. World. North Korea. There was not one single case of.
That's true.
Not one.
So I'm just amazed. I'm not even amazed that this happened. I don't know why we would cooperate with China to develop something they can use against us. That's insane. And secondly, it doesn't surprise me that Fauci and others would cover it up. That doesn't surprise me. What bothers me right now, we can't change what has happened, but we can hold those accountable that knew better and pushed us in a totally different direction that I believe caused lives in serious disruption to the entire world. That is my new COVID update.
Well, I have an update.
Yes, please.
The Supreme Court unanimously ruled that Trump gets to get on all the ballots.
Oh, great. And they didn't even do it.
Screw you, Colorado, Illinois, and all the rest of them.
I think Maine, maybe.
Yes.
And a lot of them that were waiting, holding off. That is good news. I'm glad that just broke. That is good. I want to switch back. What punishment do you believe Fauci should serve?
Did Fauci give him the money?
I don't know. I can't tell you where the 17 if it was exactly 17 million. He knew it happened, and he pushed the narrative a totally different direction, knowing exactly how it happened.
Well, you and Fauci can go duke it out behind.
No, I want more. It would have to. Yeah, I'm not going to say it because I do not know who's listening, and sometimes we get restricted.
Right.
Shall we talk about Nikki Haley and Donald Trump?
Who is that first person? What?
I don't like this. What I'm going to give you. I do not like this.
Bless
General election polls. Trump leads Joe by 2 to 3%, which shocks me. How is that? I know how it's possible, but wouldn't you think, with as much of a disaster as Joe has been in office, and how unpopular he is, that Trump couldn't beat him by more than that? Would you not agree with that?
You also do know all the polls are skewed against Trump, right? You do realize that.
Yes, I hope that is accurate. I pray that that's accurate. So they have Nikki Haley leading by 8 to 10%, and that's what she's hanging her hat on. There appears to be zero path for her to get that nomination, short of Trump not being eligible. And maybe that's what she...
Sir, did you not see the primary or the caucus this weekend? He got like 90% of the vote in one of the states.
I am aware of all that. What bothers me is the fact that Joe will still... It'll be a close election between, if the polls are correct, and you're saying they're not. If they are, it shocks me it can still be close between Biden and Trump. I think the situation is that Trump has 50% of the people that absolutely support him and 50% of the people that absolutely despise him. And that line isn't moving a lot, irregardless of who's on the other side. Can we agree?
And I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that, but I'm also saying here is the situation. If it stays Biden as the person running, which...
And then that's not going to stay as well. I don't know.
I don't know anymore. I honestly do not know anymore.
They can't allow that if they want to win. I hope
they
do.
Again, I don't know anymore, but here is the thing. I will go back to this and go back to this and go back to this. I know there are just as many people that think Donald Trump is the devil as worship him. Okay, I get that. I also know that now the choice is between two people, as of now, right now, today, the choice is between two people that have both served in this office, and even the people that hate him, if you believe in these polls that you quote so much, have even stated that they were better off under Trump than Biden. That is what I go back to every single time.
There are more people that state they're better off than. I don't know about the ones that hate him saying that. But easily 20 or 30% more said they were doing better under Trump.
I think
of the populace.
I think your girlfriend is going to run on some other no labels something ticket. Obviously, the Kennedy man's in there. The people that love Trump are going to vote for Trump regardless. Period. Paragraph. The end. Biden does not have that. Biden has people that will vote against Trump, but they're going to have more options than just him to vote against Trump. They can vote for, Kennedy, whoever the no labels person is. I do not think this is nearly as bad a scenario as you think. If you look at the polls from when he beat Hillary at 2016, never once was he even close to her in polling. If you look at the polls from 2020, he was always behind Biden within the margin of error. And yes, he lost, but we're talking about in these states where he lost, we're talking like thousands of votes, not. And if you look at the 8 swing states that they say is going to decide this, he is leading outside the margin of error in all of them, except for one. I think there's one.
That is encouraging, and I agree with you. And I go back to what you stated. You are right on the polls that I'm not going to answer a phone and take a poll. I don't believe the Trump supporters are answering the phone or allowing them to be surveyed. Is that as simple as it gets?
No, I don't think so either. And when Trump beat Hillary, if you'll remember back, I mean, it was like 27 years ago, and they were trying to figure out how all the polling data was so off. Because, I mean, it was embarrassingly off. Because Trump actually won that election pretty handily in terms of electoral votes. But they went back and there was like I don't even remember what the term they had for it, but they said that what they came to the conclusion was that there was a whole lot of people that voted for Trump that even when in exit polling, they lied. They just wouldn't admit out loud that they voted for Trump.
Those would be the independents or the more conservative possible past Democrats that I
think they called it the shadow Trump voter. Yes. I think that was the term of it. I can't remember, but yeah. So
in the closet, they will vote for him outside.
Right. And there are a lot of people, even to this day, because they all know that you of course hate him and I love him. And they're like, I don't tell people this, but like, I'm going to vote for him. I voted for him the last time. I'm going to vote for him again, but I wouldn't dare tell anybody other than you that. I'm like, tell Dale, he'll get the most upset.
No, I think he's the best person for the job, period.
You want Nikki Haley to
have my concerns. No, I have my concerns, and I can go further that way, that there are people that would win the general election, have an easier path to the White House if they were the nominee. And
I don't think she will. I really don't.
I'm not even saying her. I'm just saying in general, someone on the Republican ticket, I would say, other than Trump, that wouldn't have so many people voting against him, may be advantageous. I want Trump in the White House. He is the only one that is going to do exactly what needs to be done. I hope if Haley or whoever else, if some crazy thing happens that they can do that. I don't know.
Well, the crazy thing has happened, and he's on the ballot. So, I mean,
he's on the ballot.
So she needs to go to the microphone right now and quit.
Yes, that would be in her best interest long term, by far. I mean, she's not going to. She is not going to. I don't know that. I mean, she has no choice after tomorrow or Tuesday, and this has already dropped, obviously, past then. So we'll know a lot more.
This was what everybody was. Whatever. Like, if by some chance, well, they have said unanimously. Even that crazy woman, Ketanji Jackson, whatever. 14,000 last names. Even her. This was unanimous. He's on the ballot. So, Nikki, I take it you need to take your little self, get in front of a microphone and go, I'm sorry, I quit right now.
So you've heard some of the pundits even talking about the fact that Trump is going to have a difficult general election. Let me just throw one scenario out there, and it's going to go way too long. If they throw your boyfriend from California on there, replace Joe, do you today believe that Trump can beat him?
Yes.
Wow, I'm glad you think that. I disagree. And I despise that gentleman more than, not as much as Fauci, but a lot. But I believe.
And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. Here we go again. Now, even though I don't care if it's Gavin, if it's Gavin, if it is anybody other than Michelle Obama, I'm going to put it that way. Let's say it's Gavin. Biden says, I can't do it. Whatever. Gavin's the new person. So you're going to have the same amount of people that are against Trump. Maybe they do have an easier time voting for Gavin, all this other stuff. Go back to the independents. Okay? Here's the thing. They are the ones that study, they research, they do all this. California is a disaster in every way possible. There is nothing. This man almost got booted out of office for a recall election on his government being governor. So yeah, I don't think so. I think I agree completely. If they pay attention, independents do pay attention. No, the Democrat
pay more attention than others, but I don't know if it's enough. I hope you're right. Then I agree. It's how somebody like that could run with a record that he has. I would have told you no way in hell. But after I watched that debate with DeSantis, I think that man can get up there and convince independents and the Democrats.
Oh, that person.
Both.
Is he alive?
The independents.
Is Don Juan alive? I haven't seen Don Juan.
So again, Super Tuesday will have dropped. We'll know whether Nikki's in or out before this episode actually drops. So, State of the Union, I think, is this week as well. Is it not Thursday? I think it is. I could be mistaken, but I think it is. Yeah, so we've got everything going on after we record. So please bear with us, audience. Please. I think Biden is going to come out and make a huge border announcement. He's going to save the country by building the wall and reenacting some executive orders, and the Republicans are bad because they have opened the border. That is what he's going to tell us in the State of the Union.
I don't watch The View, but I would really like to watch The View today.
Oh, I don't even know when it is on or what state. Oh,
Whoopi is going to lose her mind. Whoopi and Joey Behar are going to lose their mind over the Supreme Court. It's going to be great.
I hope they stress out like a Pieter hog, go down, turn purple, and no longer exist.
I have one more bit of current events, and it's the most important current event that we have probably talked about ever. I'm very, very disappointed in you. That
I have more.
You have more
current events. I don't know if it's the one you're talking about. Probably.
Oh, well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, while we're talking about the border, and I know I extended this invitation last week, so I will be going to Houston this week. Ryan, you're in Houston this week as well, or you were already in Houston?
I'm already in Houston. I'll be back in Houston. I'll be in Austin, then back to Houston. Very, very, very busy.
Got it. It's not that far. You'll be okay. So I'm in Houston this week. Basically, by the time this episode drops, I'll be home from Houston, and then to the Rio Grande Livestock Show, which Ryan is familiar with that area because of his mother's queenship. Mm-hmm. My good friend at the border is going to allow me to take that firsthand tour of what's going on the border to get my eyes on exactly what's going on. I have a pretty good feeling. I know what's going on. I've reached out to Ryan personally. I've reached out to him here. He still has time to join me. I believe it to be a civic duty to do it. I don't believe he's going to.
No.
So between the Rio Grande Livestock Show, I believe the next day I'm going to do the border trip. Obviously, I would be happy to inform you on Beyond the Circus on what is going on, in my opinion, down there, which I don't think there's any big surprises. And from there, I head up to Rodeo Austin. And I don't think we're ever there at the same time. I'm sure that we are not, by the way. Mm-mm. You're gone before I ever get there.
Yeah.
So there was another news clip that came on, I don't know, 3 a.m. It was a crazy odd hour. The former Border Patrol chief, up until I think 10 months ago, so during Biden's first 2 years plus, came on the news and openly admitted this is the person that's in charge of 120,000 border agents. That the time Biden took over the office, he put Camelto in charge of the border, I believe. She's the border czar. I don't know if she still is because doesn't make a lot of sense. Neither Kamala nor Joe had a conversation with this gentleman about the border. Never did they ask his opinion on what's going on at the border or what we should do. This is the gentleman that's in charge of all of Border Patrol. And they're concerned about the border? I disagree.
Ma.
Very, very much disagree. So now with that, Ryan, will you go to the border?
No, I'm not going to the border. Nope.
All right. Yeah, have you noticed anything about Iran?
No.
They're 60% there on their uranium enrichment to build a nuclear weapon, and they say once you're at 60%, the rest comes very quickly. Can we both agree that if Iran has nuclear capabilities, that it changes that whole area and eventually the planet because they're crazy enough to do something with it?
Oh, without a doubt.
So what's the solution?
I don't have one.
I do.
Okay, what is your solution?
We're not going to talk about it. We've discussed it. They need to be gone. Gone.
Ma.
Just what it is. There is no other way. They're crazy. I mean, they're North Korea crazy, maybe beyond that. Very, very crazy. And that when they have a nuclear weapon, I can't imagine Israel won't take them out first because they will try to take out Israel will be their first mission is my guess. I just my thoughts. So I don't know, but that does concern me that they are close to nuclear capabilities. Biden is doing nothing. Not only is he doing nothing, if you think back during the Obama administration, they gave them airplane loads of cash that helped them proceed down this uranium enrichment. Biden, as president, freed up billions of dollars, supposedly for humanitarian relief in Iran, which then the money they were going to use for that can be diverted towards making a nuclear weapon. The taxpayers of the U.S. basically developed a nuclear weapon for Iran, and I'm still not convinced that we did not fund the taxpayers indirectly the development of COVID-19 in the Wuhan lab. Aren't you glad what your tax dollars are going for? Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Very much.
Oh, what is your news?
Finally.
Caitlin.
Most important news ever. Spirit and JetBlue have merged, so now you can die twice on the worst airline in the world.
Yes, I think
they have gone together to create doubly the worst airline in the world.
You have never flown them, have you?
I don't want to die.
I have a couple times. No, I don't either, and it's a disaster. Whether it's late, canceled, lost luggage, it's a disaster. And I mistakenly, I believe one of my flights to either to Houston or back, and I avoid it, and somehow it happened. I think I'm on Spirit. I think. Train wreck
to you.
Train wreck. They charge you for a carry-on, Ryan, more than what you pay for a check bag on another airline. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Caitlin Clark, are you going to say anything about her?
Who?
Caitlin Clark. You've heard about her.
No.
That is your young lady at Iowa that's playing basketball once in a while.
Oh, okay.
Still nothing.
No.
All-time scoring record in the NCAA.
Okay.
Beats Pete Maravich. However, he did not have a three-point line. He did not play as a freshman, so there's a lot of footnotes, I think, that go in there. But I think
is there a point to this story?
No, that she has brought a lot of attention to women's basketball, and I think will carry that attention into her professional career.
You know what I believe about sports.
I do. How about some BTR JLA news?
Okay. Top 10 overall Lamb standings nationwide as of right now. First, Aubrey Callens of California. You're going to get very upset again.
God.
Second, Holly Faye Schweitzer of California. Third, Casey McEntee, Texas. Fourth, Alfred McDaniel, Texas. Fifth, Taya Winden of Colorado. Sixth, Carly Stiles of Texas. Seventh, Jackson King of Mississippi. See, I got it right this time. I didn't say Missouri. Hannah Hewitt of Texas is 8th. Kenzie Brown of Texas is 9th. And Adele Simpson of Arizona is 10th. There you go.
That's not as bad as it could have been.
No, last week it was real bad. It was like all Arizona.
Yeah. Dixie National's got us a Mississippi kid in there, it sounds like. And there are a lot of jackpots that have been going in California since the beginning of the year.
So
where was our last champion? She was not on the radar, Miss Paisley.
Paisley or Piper are not in there. No, neither one of the two all-around champions.
Wow. They got to get going. It's time. It's time to get going. Do you have a sponsor for this week, or shall I move into it?
Go right on to your water boy.
I have a blend of the two, and it makes perfect sense. I just came up with this last night. So Popejoy Livestock is on a regular schedule, hauling online purchases from the Midwest to the West Coast and back. Check out Popejoy Livestock Transportation's Facebook page for contact information and further details about the route. The next time I meet Stephen Ryan to give him some goats to head west, guess what else I'm taking?
Showfresh H2O.
Showfresh. I am. And those, I don't know why I didn't do it sooner, but I guarantee you those animals are going to be more likely to drink en route with that. And animals do not like to drink en route, period. But that's our next experiment to see if they go to water a little bit better when I give him some Showfresh H2O. Thank you again to Showfresh H2O for sponsoring the junior livestock industry and this podcast. You can pick up Showfresh H2O at your local farm store, supply trailer, and at swampfox.com. Today's topic is pretty wide open, we could say, and it probably will go many, many directions. But I do like it, and I believe Ryan came up with this. Am I allowed to say when you came up with this?
No, let's not. It was this week. We'll put it that way.
Okay, it's all right to come to say. I think it's okay. But while you're in Houston, is that fair enough?
Well, I was actually between Houston and New Braunfels, but yeah, kind of. At some point during that.
After you experienced or heard about something happening at Houston is when you came up.
Just why are you you just trying to be messy? Timing is everything. Mm-hmm.
Please jump in.
Oh, we haven't ever really talked about it. And I don't care what you want, which angle you want to go or what you want to talk about, but timing is probably the single most crucial thing that affects the stock show world, whether it's getting one ready or feeding, purchasing, all these things. It literally affects every single thing about getting an animal ready for a stock show. And so I just came up with this, and not only does it affect, the process when you're at home preparing these animals for the show, but it is also very crucial when you get to said shows. So I thought it was a worthy topic.
Oh, it is. And we can go many directions. And one I want to point out, I can, but I won't use specific shows as examples. Ryan, can you inform our audience, and you can use me as the example, even though you're just as bad. What happens when I'm at a show and the shows are supposed to start at 8:00 and it's delayed an hour, maybe even longer? Where?
Oh no, I will be the first one to tell you that. Like I am. So like people, I am a very high maintenance individual. It takes a lot for me to look the way I look. And some of you may think I look terrible, and that's fine. But there is a lot of preparation that goes into this. I'm not going to say exactly how long it takes, but it takes a long time. And I always want to be at the shows that I judge 30 minutes before it starts, all this other stuff. And so, long story short.
And you stay 2 hours away because you won't stay.
I don't stay 2 hours. When I judged the Comal County Fair in New Braunfels, I stayed 5 minutes from the show the other night. Don't even start. But anyhow, the point is, whether you are the judge or you're getting animals ready to show at that show, if you say you're going to start at 8 or you say you're going to start at 10, then you need to start on time. That's just all there is to it. And not the county show that I just judged, but we have been at shows, a lot of shows over this. I mean, I don't think I've been at home a whole week Like you add up the days. I don't think I've been at home 7 days since the start of 2024. Now we're in the third month. And I have seen shows at every level, whether it is jackpot, whether it's county or major shows, that did not start on time. And I do not understand this. I do not. I do not understand it.
It is. I don't get it. And especially think about this. And you touched on it as exhibitors. How furious are you when you've got one ready in the chute, on the stand, whatever it may be, and they push the show back? Or how about if we're trucking along and either lunch break is taken without being announced, or they choose to not take one when we had under the presumption that they were going to. Shows make those things clear. I know that you want to adjust and accommodate the judge and all of those things, and that's perfectly fine, and I encourage that. But you have to keep the exhibitors informed, because that is a big stressor at the show. When do we start getting these ready? When are we going to predict they're going in that ring? Let's make those things pretty much absolute as we possibly can. Give them heads up, plenty of heads up. If you were a show steer, okay, and steer's a perfect thing. That's a perfect analogy, I think. And you had to get ready for a show. How much you already talked about how much it takes a lot of time. I'm going to say for you to get ready to walk out there to judge a show is, without the driving time, at least 2 hours.
It takes a while, but I'm just saying.
If all of a sudden they threw something at you either direction, it just doesn't work. If they make a change, it doesn't.
Right, but what I don't understand, and like I said, this topic is going to cover a lot more than we're just starting on shows. I have been involved in running shows of all sizes and kinds over the course of my life. And you, as show management, staff, volunteers, etc., you know what has to be done for that show to start at 8 or start at 10, or if you're San Antonio and showing cattle at 7 a.m. or whatever time, noon. You know what has to be done for it to start on time. And there are, freak things that happen, at shows, and I get it. But when it's not a emergency or a freak accident or all this other stuff, and the show does not start on time, I don't understand it. I do not. I get frustrated when I am the judge, but I get more frustrated for the people that, like you said, there's however many animals at this show. And it doesn't matter if you're in class 1 or class 43. The show starting on time affects every single person there trying to get an animal ready. And that's far more people impacted than just the judge. And I don't understand why we can't start on time. I do not. It does not make sense to me at all.
I am completely with you. I get it. I think there's one that you mentioned to me when you came up with this topic about, and we're going to go all over the place on this, but you brought up having a schedule and feeding your livestock the same time every day, your show stock specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think whether you're I believe, and Dale's going to argue with me or put out some other train of thought on this, but it is my opinion that when you're dealing with show animals, whether you're at your barn at home or you're at the show, everything needs to be done with urgency and consistency. I don't care if you're the show management. I don't care if you're the daddy. I don't care if you're the kid. I don't care if you're the judge. All of it. Everybody there. Urgency and consistency.
That I will not shed another opinion on that, nor will I disagree with it.
No, you just said that there are other people that don't believe in that, and I said, well, they're wrong.
Not me. There are other. My biggest stressor every day in life is those that do not see urgency or place urgency upon every task. And I probably, like you, Ryan, we probably are on the opposite side of that. We probably have a little overkill there. But if you're not doing something with that sense of urgency, it's just not getting done as quickly. It's not getting done as well. None of the above are happening. So it's interesting. And we talk about even feeding show animals, and a lot of people will promote that we need to feed at a certain time every day in terms of our timing. I'm not going to argue with that at all. And in general, we're probably doing that. However, I think in some animals that we want to increase intake, that if we're feeding it every time, they get set in that habit, that they are going to get fed. They're not too concerned mentally. And you can think I'm off my rocker trying to get inside the head of a show animal, but I believe this, that mentally, if they know they're going to be fed, they're not quite as aggressively going towards that feed, kind of like an animal being fed by itself versus competition. They don't have to worry about how much they're going to get. It's right there in front of them. An animal that's got a full feeder in front of them may not eat as much because it's always there. They're not concerned about not eating. If we feed an animal X amount to where they're going to clean it up and they're looking for more, they're likely to continue to go to that feed each and every time you feed them a little more aggressively. I also have noticed, and this can be part of timing, if for some reason those animals are not going to feed as aggressively as we'd like, and we feed at 7 o'clock every morning or 6 o'clock at night or whatever it may be, if we go a couple hours past that and let them start thinking, well, maybe I'm not going to get fed, maybe once a week skip one of those feedings. And I know that goes against what a lot of people believe. But if we do that, all of a sudden, they're not convinced that they're going to get feed in that feeder every time. And we completely control if they get fed or not. And if they do not believe they're going to have feed put in that feeder every time, I believe they're going to go aggressively more to that feed for fear they might not get fed next. Can we put any logic into that timing?
Sure. We'll just go with you.
Did I lose you on that one a little bit?
No, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I see that, but I think those are rare instances. I mean, I do think there are animals that, like you're describing, but I also think that by and large, the animals that I have dealt with, if you feed at 5 o'clock at home, then you need to feed that animal at 5 o'clock at the show. Or because that's what it's used to, all this other stuff. I think consistency outweighs that a lot of times. And people talk about animals going off feed at shows and all this other stuff because new environment, distractions, all this other things going on. But it's just
a good new topic.
It's been my experience that the more consistent you are in things, if you wash it 8 o'clock in the morning at home, then you need to wash that one. Try to very as much as possible everywhere you go. Animals are like people, and creatures of habit and routines. And I think when you're at shows specifically, you're trying to keep that animal as stress-free as possible. And if you try to keep it, her, whatever, in the same routine that they're used to every single day, I think that will help those things. That's my opinion.
That timing is absolute, and there's no question. We could do a whole episode on that, Ryan. And I agree with you so much. I get concerned, for example, in our barn, usually that we've obviously got windows in there, so you're gonna get some light from the natural photo period when the sun comes up and the sun goes down. But for the most part, those lights being turned on at a certain time, pretty close every morning and off in the evenings. When we get to shows, I'm convinced that when we haul in there that first day and it's 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock, whatever time we're turning the lights off at home, those lights at most shows aren't going off, are they, Ryan?
Mm-mm.
And for many reasons that I'd rather they didn't go off, but in terms of the animals' well-being, their disruption in terms of their sleep pattern and everything, I do think those lights being on screws that up and adds to some of the complications that we have at shows. In some cases, I will find the breaker box or the light switch, and I will shut lights down just so those animals have that routine, that consistency.
That is so nice that you're announcing to the world that you go around turning off lights at shows.
Hey, it is what it is. And again, I don't like a lot of things that may happen.
Do not try this at home, people. Do not do as Dale says. No. You get in trouble.
I'm not saying do it. I'm just confessing what I do to try to benefit those animals and keep that routine going. Yes, don't do it.
But timing affects feed. I think something that, and we haven't done anything on showmanship in a while because we did those 4, and I said I'm not doing anything on showmanship for another year. I don't even remember when that was, but timing is very crucial in showmanship. And I have watched so many shows this year, so many shows. And I want to put out there to all the parents and to all these kids that may be listening. I don't, other than hogs, because, they're constantly in motion. If you are showing a goat, a sheep, or a bovine, okay? I know that there are times that you are going to have to circle out and reset or maneuver your stuff into line and all this other stuff. Let me give you a real good piece of advice. Do not do it when the judge is right there trying to evaluate your animal. Do not. And I just cannot tell you how many hundreds of times I have seen that happen this year. And I'm like, why? And the worst part of it is, more times than not in that situation, they could have maneuvered the animal with the head or neck instead of circling all the way out, or they could have stepped over with feet. There was a lot of different situations and solutions to the problem than circling out with the judge right there. And a lot of times they didn't need to do anything. The animal was perfectly fine. And it's been weighing on me. I'm not gonna lie. I need a new hobby. I don't need to go to shows anymore. It's very stressful for me.
I think there's things that are pushing your buttons worse than they maybe even have in the past.
It's very stressful for me. It's very stressful. Very stressful.
And what are you going to do the next 2 or 3 weeks?
I leave here as soon as my cleaning is dry. I leave here and I am gone till Houston is over. And it is a show every day. I'm not going to.
So will you be there? Well, I leave. I'll be there with Chase and Katie and my wife Holly on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yep, I'll be there. Well, I don't know. Thursday I got to go to Austin, but I'll be there Tuesday, Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Yep.
See, timing. Good timing, wasn't it?
Oh, Jesus. You're taking the whole damn family to Houston?
Oh, we are. Chase is on spring break.
Chase has to go to college.
Spring break. He likes Houston. And Katie is honestly, this will be her first trip to Houston. She needs to experience.
Well, Katie and I are going to have some very long talks about her father while we're there. So that's all I'm going to say. But we're getting off.
I understand. What about some other things as we're talking about timing? I'm going to, and again, this is we can apply this to anything. And you share a personal experience that I told the story about on here many episodes ago, but not just the consistency, not just the show starting on time, but everything we do in life, and everything that we do in life can be applied to our approach to the stock show industry. 17, 18 years ago, it became very aware to me how popular goats were in Texas. Ryan, when did you? Are you allowed, without disclosing your age, do you know the year you first showed a goat in Texas?
Yes, but we're not going to talk about it. It was the first. It was late 90s, and it was the first year they had goats in Texas. Very late 90s.
Okay,
very very late.
Okay. With that said, I was aware because of taking judging teams into the Texas majors and being in that arena a little more maybe than some others from the Midwest, that goats had become very, very popular down there. And it was clear that the numbers were insane, how fast they were growing. With that said, I thought, well, it's probably, if it's growing that well there, that it's going to spread eventually. So we made that choice about 15 years ago to purchase the best genetics we possibly could and bring them up to the north. There were people that brought meat goats up to the Midwest prior to that, but it was maybe a little early. The timing wasn't quite right, that they didn't get a lot of traction. But right at that time that we decided to buy that particular herd and bring them up here, it had absolutely exploded in Texas, filtered into Oklahoma pretty heavily. and was about to break loose. And by simply bringing those genetics up here and getting them out on social media, it just exponentially increased people's awareness to them and people from other species we call crossover families wanting to show goats. And I don't know if we'd have been a couple years sooner or a couple years later. I don't know that would have all worked out as well. So in that type of situation, timing was absolutely essential for that to happen. And there's so many things that we do every single day, those of us in the stock show industry. My life right now is sales season for our fallborns. We have to figure out when those animals are going to be, when our flushes take place, so we know when those kids are going to hit the ground on the goat side. And we've got to have enough time for those kids to get weaned and hopefully on to feed for a couple of weeks and hopefully bloomed up a little bit prior to us taking pictures. That needs to happen prior to the sale. And all of those things, all of them are absolutely based off of timing. If we have kids that are too skinny, too green, we have to wean them too early, they're not going to picture well. They're not going to sell well. People aren't even going to know for sure. Their confidence in how they're going to mature is not very good. So all of those things have to happen. And it's interesting to me when I look at that, we're moving up our sale dates earlier and earlier each year because people are getting more aggressive, wanting to buy earlier and wanting to make sure they've got those animals located. And I think across species, we're showing market animals older and older. So sale dates keep getting earlier and earlier. And that's something we've touched on before, but it's absolutely critical. We get those things wrong, it just doesn't work. So we're right now, and obviously we're recording early. We have 2 sales left for our fallborns, and I think we've had 3 or 4 sales already. Right now is probably the heart of, I would say, goat sales for the Midwest. There's as many sales going on right now. We're right in the heart of it. Where here in a couple of weeks, it's going to be just pretty much done. And that window of when people are looking and out aggressively pursuing is becoming tighter and tighter. If we don't plan ahead of time, all the way from when we're flushing to when we think we can get those goats weaned and on feed and pictured, if that timing isn't done well and we don't hit that window, we're in trouble. It just doesn't work at all. So I have a question for you, Ryan. When people are out and I'm not out there doing it, I would love to do it at some point. When you used to be brokering a lot of steers, and I don't know that you don't like looking at cows, so I don't know how many pastures you went through, but you were very involved in that industry. How is the timing, the good and the bad, for those that are out there steer shopping, looking at those babies in the cow versus waiting until they're broke, clipped, fit, on track? When is the best time to do something like that, the good and bad?
I think that depends on the individual person, because there are psychopaths like you that want to see the grandmother and the great grandmother and all this other stuff. I have been very transparent on this thing from the beginning. I don't have to see, especially if it is a market animal, and I primarily dealt in steers. I really didn't care to ever see the mother. And again, they can tell me that there was,
if the mother was a 5-minute walk out into the pasture, you would not.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gone. I'm gonna be real honest. I wouldn't have walked out there. I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't have walked out there. And they can tell me it was a heat wave or in God we trust or here I am or all this other stuff. And it very well may be, but I also know that it might not have been. So I just don't care. I cared what that animal looked like. But there are people that want to see them on the cow and all this other stuff. And so I think that's kind of up to you. And I think it's also probably, I think that there are people that are better at selecting them when they're like, I have a friend that's great at selecting Ethiopian skinny ones. I don't really, not very good at it, and never had to be, but it just kind of depends on, what your forte on the thing is. If you want to see it on the cow, whatever. I think as far as timing, I think that you were talking about your sales and all this other stuff. We can use the state of Texas, and there's a bunch of steer sales going on right now in the middle of 5 major shows and all this other stuff. There was a ton of steer sales this past weekend. How they line all that up and how all these people make it all work, I do not know. My hat is off to them. If I wore one, I don't know how it all works, and I don't know how they decide those things, but it is working because I mean, most of the sales this weekend were very, very successful. We watched them all online. Callie is addicted to watching them. So I don't know when this started, when this happened, but we have to fix it. I'm going to deprogram her. But we watched all of them. And obviously they knew the right time, and it worked out very well for them. But I find it hard. And, just like we said, not only in, all of these people like you and your family and anybody that raises them, all this other stuff, it's not just that all you do is we're going to put this sale together for this Tuesday, whatever. You have these children, you have other businesses, you have work, all this other stuff going on. So the fact that y'all can get it down to the right time and make it happen for those people to get those animals, there's a lot of work in that people don't even realize. But it is true, just like we're saying, the timing of when those sales are, because you were talking about people want them earlier. I can remember a time not too long ago that nobody in Texas really cared about buying a steer until all the Texas majors were over. They wanted their barn cleaned out. Now we buy steers before Fort Worth when we haven't even shown the one we got for Fort Worth for this year. So it gets interesting.
That is, and I mean, I think there for a while, and I was just looking in from the outside, but that was just pretty much standard practice. Once the majors are over, steer sales started, period.
Yeah. Not now.
And I'm not saying there wasn't one sold privately, but for the most part, it just didn't happen.
No. And now it's completely different.
And I think we're seeing that across species. I think we're seeing earlier and earlier sales for various reasons, but one of the blatant reasons is, Ryan, I think we're the animals are being born earlier because we're showing them older in the market side for sure, and the breeding side as well. We're just maybe fibbing on the birth date a little bit on the breeding side, just a little.
Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, we knew this was going to go all over the board because we could spend another 17 hours on talking about when the right time to do things is, but we were talking a little bit about consistency and feed times and stuff like that. And then Dale went on his rant about, I still don't even know what all that was about, but,
my philosophy on getting animals to increase their feed.
Yes. Increase their appetite. Yes. Okay. That's what that was. Anyhow, we're talking about market animals here, and then I'm going to say something about breeding animals, but versus market animals. Most times during a market animal's lifespan or feeding period, a large majority of them, not all, but a large majority of them, there's going to have to be a time where one of them is held or pushed. Do you not agree with that, Dale?
I agree completely.
Okay. And so on either way or both, the timing of when you do that and how long you do that is pretty significantly important to what that animal is going to look like and feed out like, and if is it going to be at the right weight and the right stage of finish and fresh enough and all this other stuff at the end. And a lot of people have a lot of different theories on when to do it, depending on the species or all this other stuff, but it's a pretty damn important thing to do because very few times, or at least in my experience, have I just got one home, put it on feed, and never had to worry about anything till the end. I'm just going to tell you that doesn't happen very often.
No, total agreement. It just is. And I'll tell you what, there's more questions that I get calls on, obviously in the goats and even people feeding other species, when I was working with those more in the past. But that is a big decision. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are uncomfortable with that decision. And until you're fairly experienced at it and maybe even have fed those genetics from that particular breeder before or have some idea in how they fed in the past, that there's a lot of things that come into play. But as Ryan said, it's absolutely critical. One of the things that I'm going to caution people that I see too much, and this is more on the goat side of things, but we will starve those goats a couple days before the show and maybe not get enough fluids into them going into the show for fear that they're going to have too big of a belly. Be careful. That is not when I want to be starving an animal going into a show. Ryan, can we
Probably
accept
not
that?
a good idea.
No, I'm just now visiting with some of those going into the majors, and that it's just there's been such a long period of time that we would pull water and only drench it in and things like that because we're trying to manage that belly. But I have no doubt in my mind we have to keep as much fluids going into those animals up until we get to that point where we're getting really close to showtime, and then we've got to allow enough time for that water to come out and get the belly or the fill correct. I think we can do as much manipulating water on the fill as maybe we even can on feed. So take that all into consideration. I'll tell you what, those that have drench protocols on lambs or goats and feeding protocols, when we talk about timing, it's everything. I mean, they've got that down to within a few minutes of hitting that show ring, when we're going to feed, when we're going to water, worrying about weightbacks, how much are we giving, all of those things. And it's all timed according to when they hit that ring and if they're going to hit that scale in terms of a weightback. So there's a lot of things that I mean, just so much that comes into play that when we used, or when Ryan threw the topic out there about timing is everything, I don't know that we consciously just think about, wow, we have to have everything happen. Ryan, what about, and for the people up here in the outside of Texas, for the most part, think about those lines at Houston right now when the market animals are going in and out, and maybe Houston's more efficient than some of the others, but any of the majors, it's not uncommon for those people to get there nearly a day ahead of time before they're going to unload.
Oh, yeah.
Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah.
In the fact that those animals are going to be on that trailer for that long, fortunately, they're stationary. I think the animals hopefully can rest, relax, they can feed, they can water, all those things. But all of that, now some will say, let's go get in line early so we can get situated in the barn and get the pens we want and get the animals to relax and maybe have those animals there a little bit longer prior to showing to acclimate. Others will say, well, let's come in the last minute. There's less time on the trailer. We can unload, boom, be done. There's less stress on the animals. When people are hauling from, when we're hauling from here to wherever, Arizona National or Cow Palace, or when it's a long trip, a lot of people want to break that up. And I get it, especially with cattle and even hogs, that they can't handle that long on a trailer. If they're not laying down, we got to get them out and loosen them up and let them rest, all those things. But relative to a goat, and I think we could probably put a sheep on there as well, it is my opinion that when we're hauling that far, we're going to get from point A to B for the most part nonstop and give them time to rest and relax there. But the more time on our trailer en route, especially if they haven't been hauled a lot, I think is more stressful on them than just getting from point A to B as quickly as we can, stop, maybe get them out real quick, back in and keep going. But again, making those decisions on timing, I promise you, I lay awake at night trying to figure out, when are we going to load to go to the show? When are we going to try to time it in terms of when that animal's actually walking in the ring? All of those things continuously go through my mind. And I think those that are more like Ryan and I and stress about making sure that there's no room for error, that everything's done exactly, I don't make some decisions as quickly as I should because I'm second guessing myself, and it's all about timing on when are we going to do this or that, trying to make sure that it's exactly right. And I spiral in a situation and put off making that decision, maybe to the point where it hurts me or is detrimental because I'm so concerned about it.
You were talking about being in line at Texas major shows and all this other stuff. And I have tried it every single way possible, from where you say being the very first one in line so you can get in the barn and be stalled and all this other stuff, to being at the bitter end. And I'm just going to tell you, I have never found the magic touch on it. It just never. If you're going to a Texas major show, I would tell you, no matter, you just go when you want to go, because you need to plan on being in line at least 12 hours, and that's just all there is to it.
And it's so hard to quantify, and every animal's different. We're threading over decisions, and I do it, and I mean we're just guessing.
I think because I did it so many times, even when I was a kid, I finally came to the conclusion, I think, that it, like, if you have, and most of ours were, been to a lot of shows and broke or whatever, I kind of like getting there to the barn and being one of the front ones in line so you can get him in or whatever. If you've got one that hasn't been to many shows, maybe is a little spooky, all that other stuff, I probably, in those situations, probably waited till the end and just as little time as humanly possible. But the other thing about Texas major shows and all that, I can't tell you the number of times we were in the first 5 trailers. And that was great because we knew exactly when we were going to go in and all this other stuff. But the chaos that ensues even after you were in there, it's still very hard for those animals to relax until everybody gets in because the tractor's moving the stuff up and down. It is the scene. You've seen the breeders, greeters at Houston driving the tractors up and down the aisle, helping exhibitors, move their tack in. It's very hard for anybody to relax during that situation. And so that part, it's just kind of whatever you want to do for the most part. The other thing that we were talking about, market animals and stuff like that, when you decide to breed, if you have a breeding animal, when you decide to breed them, and this isn't just about making those decisions on terms of selling. I'm talking about when you're an exhibitor. You have these animals and you're going to breed them, all this other stuff. Almost every species has a designated target time when they think that animal should have reproduced for the first time. Example, most people that judge or show or whatever think a heifer should calve at 2 years of age. Would you agree with that, Dale?
Yes, it's pretty standard.
Right. So,
depending on what their real birth date is.
Unless very extenuating circumstances, I do not want to show a January, February, or March-born heifer because of where I live. And do you want to know why, Dale?
Because of the time you're showing it and whether it's bred or not.
Right, because a January, February, March, we go through this entire process of major shows through those 3 months, Texas major shows. And if you have a January, February, March bred and you're not, calved, all this other stuff, a lot of judges are going to discount you, or that's going to give them something to keep you maybe, not win or all this other stuff. That's a hickey on that heifer. Well, she's a February. Here we are at Houston, middle of March, and she hasn't calved yet, all this other stuff. I would just much rather show in April and be done.
I think that's a very valid point. I noticed this, and obviously it happens here as well in the United States, but I noticed at the Palermo show in Argentina on the cattle side, when I'm there for that 4 or 5 days at the show, they will do the opposite, Ryan. They're trying to get those things to calve just as soon as they get back from that show, within 7 days of returning home from that show, because they want that incredibly big body and everything that's going to come to play when that fetus is maturing in the uterus, to give them more capacity, all those things. So with that said, while I'm at that show, there will be dozens, or I don't know about dozens. There are many calves born at the show because everybody's pushing that limit, trying to get them as far along in their pregnancy when they hit the ring as possible. I don't know that we're pushing the limits like that here to that degree. I
mean, I have not been to a major show in my lifetime where a heifer hasn't calved there. I don't know about dozens, but it happens every single one. Yeah. And, even when I'm showing in April, do I want her to calve it too? Yes. Does it always happen? No, but pretty close it does. And I want her to calve in April, so she's still going to be, heavy with calf and all this other stuff. But there is something mentally in most judges' heads that here we are at Fort Worth in February. You have a January 2-year-old out there and she hasn't calved yet. And then So
nor does she look heavy bred, maybe, which would be even a further problem.
And then also, talking about things, there are some cattle or some sheep, some goats, whatever, even though they may be a month away from dominoing, they don't look it. And then there are some that are in the second trimester that look like they're ready to pop right now. And you can't control any of that. I mean, that just, But just talking about things that revolve around timing, I could sit here and go through 900 more examples about it, but it does affect every single aspect of this deal. And my final take-home note on this is, I want to say again, I'm not trying to, you laid back people, all this other stuff that Dale says are out there. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but you're wrong. But urgency and consistency, I think, are keys to success when it involves timing. And I think that is whether you are broker, breeder, salesman, showman, fitter, show management, judge. And I cannot tell you how many times over this past year, this past year, we're 3 months into it, but anyway, in 2024, I don't know why this happens, and it happens more and more every single time. And Callie's going to start what are those little things that they count with? You know, those little things you hold in your hand and you click things to get a number count.
I do not know what they're called.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Counters.
Okay.
Let's call them counters.
Counters, anyway. So she's thinking that she's going to get one from Amazon and take counts on this. But all of these people come up and they at these shows and they want to know why I'm not judging or what I think of the judge or all this other stuff. And it's terrible ideas. Don't do it. Please don't. Let's talk about the weather, something else. But I cannot tell you how many of them, whether it was either at that show that they were discussing or one they had just been to, that they just didn't seem, the judge or the show management, nobody seemed to care. Like it was just, it happens when it happens. It does. Whether the judge didn't seem excited or didn't seem focused, all these things. I want to put out there, I do not think anybody that is standing out there in the ring judging or being an intern, helping in the ring or show management, volunteers, all this stuff, you have no idea how many sets of eyes are on you and how many opinions are being made about your performance. There's no other way to put it. So I just take home note. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. All good. Right. And we don't need to go into it because we need to move on to question and answer. But what about the timing when we started this podcast? There were some that started before us that had success, some that didn't, some that have started after that are still here and still aren't. And I think that was, I think at that time, I know I was becoming more aware of podcasts, even though I don't know that I'd ever listened to one before we first recorded one. But I think even things like that, it's everywhere, guys. It's everything we do every single day. Timing is going to impact the success. And it's that simple.
I think talking about this podcast and the timing, I think it was a necessary evil because we started right after Rona had shut everybody down and we had no idea of when we were going to get started back up, all this other stuff. And so that timing was just kind of pretty damn spot on. And I think that not only because we were at a lull where those of us who play this sport, we didn't know exactly what the future was, but we were trying to, maybe people started listening to podcasts more then because we didn't have shows every weekend and all this other stuff. But because you had more free time, the audience grew and word of the mouth spread and all this other stuff. So yeah, the timing for us was pretty good on that instant. Good job, Dale. I would like to thank Sierra Cargill Marketing and Creative for being the question and answer sponsor for this week. Sierra Cargill Marketing Plus Creative is a rural Kansas-based agency committed to delivering tailored solutions that exceed expectations and yield tangible results. Our expertise lies in brand identity, social media management, creative design, website development, and digital marketing and advertising. With our experienced team, we are devoted to moving your business forward in today's competitive marketplace. Stay connected with us on Facebook, Instagram, or visit www.sierracargill.com. Reach out today to explore how we can address your marketing needs and create a strategy designed exclusively for you and your business. So thank you to Sierra Cargill Marketing Plus Creative for being a sponsor.
And Ryan, I think when they were inquiring about sponsoring, I had a chance to visit with them on the phone. And everybody thinks I understand marketing or the social media marketing and so forth. And I've survived it. But I tell you what, visiting with them answered some of my questions that I've been wondering about for a long time. Ryan, you know what the other part is? Not only did they give me some good guidance, they didn't even charge me for it. No charge.
I don't think you should be telling people that.
It's truth. But these people get it. They understand. And I only discuss some things about social media and specifically on Facebook, and they absolutely get it. So if you're wanting to strengthen your brand and understand things just a little bit better, I would encourage you to reach out because I certainly approve of their abilities. With that said, the first question, Ryan, comes from Billy. This one's a little harder.
Oh, good.
I am seeing more cryptorchid hogs recently. Why is this becoming more common? I assume he's seeing more of them. And I don't go watch enough hog sales, but in the footnotes that this was a cryptorchid that they had surgery on or something. I'm not sure, but I've seen that this is like the third time I've seen this particular question. I had avoided it until now because I didn't have a very good answer. But I'm not the one that answers these. This is all Ryan.
I don't have an answer. So I hope you have one because I don't have an answer.
Well, I don't know, but Billy, the only thing I can think of is veterinarians, because the show industry continues to grow, the veterinarians are more comfortable doing surgery on the cryptorchids. And as we have more surgeries being done on those, and maybe that's a genetic line that happens to fit a certain trend in the hog industry that I'm going to assume. And again, I have not looked at this specifically, but there is a genetic tie to it, and we continue to go down that path with using a sister to or a litter mate of that cryptorchid barrow in our program, and we continue to propagate it more and more. And the fact that veterinarians are willing to fix them, now they're showing up on online sales, and I don't even know if that's where you're coming from, but I assume so, that they're putting a footnote in that this was a cryptorchid, he's been taken care of, he'll be just fine. And I think it just snowballs from there. And Ryan, with that said, when they do a surgery, it usually sets them back a little bit. And remember how positive age is for mature muscle and bone and things like that. So it's another way of making them a little bit older. So yeah, there's a lot of things. Go ahead.
You have avoided this question, and yet you don't have an answer. And you knew I would not have an answer, but you did not call Cade and ask him. Mr. Pig Guru of the world.
I tried to call him this morning, and he texted me, I will call back after chores. Well, I tried.
How many chores does this little man have?
I don't know. He has a few cows, and he has a few pigs. Joe has the next question. So, Billy, I apologize. That's the best I got.
Hopefully, he will talk to Cade, and we will have a better answer for you next week.
Call Cade. Good luck him answering the phone, but call Cade. Joe says, I love the podcast. See, it starts out great, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, this ties exactly into what we've been talking about a little bit today.
Jesus.
What do you guys think about the trend of showing older and older market animals each year? Well, is it a trend, Ryan? First off, is it a trend?
I don't know I don't think it's a trend.
It may not be a trend, but it's happening.
But I think we're past the trend stage. I think it's here.
Okay, got it.
I think it's here.
That's better. Yes, I agree with that. That's a better way to look at it.
Trends are something that are new and may stay around, may not. I think this is kind of here. I don't know if
this
it's going
is
anywhere.
Mainstream.
Yeah, I don't know if I call it a trend anymore. Yes, it is here. It is. I don't think it's going anywhere, and it is for all of the things that we have said, not only on this episode but in previous episodes, to get them stouter, to get them more muscular, to get them bigger legged, all those things, that requires the maturity. And so I don't know if this is going away, because I think it's just kind of here. I keep going back to this episode because it's one of my favorite episodes when we did the EST ones. And so we talked about the fact that, and I brought this up, I said that the two words that I don't hear enough talking about EST terms are soundest and freshest. And Dale will tell you, because he gets very angry at me, I am a big freshest person. Very much so. Very, 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 very much so. I do not like old, ugly-headed animals. And it is very bothersome to me. And Dale gets very angry. Because
you picked on one of my goats, called him ugly-headed. He was not any older or younger than another goat in that same class that I believe would have won the class. But he had a more mature-looking head. Yes. But you're right. When's the last time you've heard a lot about, remember, do you remember the day? And I don't think it was that long ago, but yeah, a few years ago, when being a young, youthful freshman was a huge advantage.
Yes, that happened. It was there. It was a positive.
Yep, it was. And
now,
again, we may, as judges, we may have been reading that wrong, but the fact that exhibit could give us that impression.
I'm not saying they were always right, but it was something that was talked about and desired. Yes. Like, it was something that you wanted your class winners to have, to be the freshest, all this stuff. I don't think that matters anymore to most people. No, and it bothers me because I am a big freshest person. I like the fresh ones. I do.
I think we're doing things intentionally to look like you're the most mature in some cases.
No, I would agree completely.
Especially the long, unkept, shaggy hog.
Yeah, for sure.
Very much so. Okay, thank you, Joe. Joanne has the next question. Thank you both for all you do as a voice for the junior livestock industry. What can we do when we hear you guys discuss something that is so logical, yet our local county show is doing the opposite, and it seems like they're not wanting to change anything? Each rule and each guideline that they have has been in place and the same for 50 years.
This question has been asked before and on here, but happy to answer it again because this happens a lot. I will say that whether it is a major show, a state fair, a county fair, whatever, you need to voice your opinions in a calm, rational, non-confrontational way. And the more people that you can get to go to those people that are in charge of that show, whether it is a county fair board meeting or whatever, all this other, the more people that express the same opinion and they hear it over and over and over again, that is going to help you out the most. Because just like we say, Dale and I can talk about anything on this podcast, but for real change to happen, it takes all of you out there listening, the almost 5 million people that have listened to this at one time or another. You have to take that information, whether you agree or disagree, talk amongst yourselves, and then go to the people that can actually put change into effect. Because us talking about it on here can only do so much. But the more people that express that opinion on something that you want changed in a calm, rational manner, I think that's the way to go.
That's perfect, Ryan. Absolutely perfect. And I'm still shocked, astonished that we've had that many downloads and we have that many listeners. But guess what? Let's use it to our advantage at this point. Ryan and I are happy to discuss it. There's nothing that we're not going to jump into and discuss if we think it's going to better our industry. But now that we have this many listeners and we have this many downloads, however you want to look at it, let's use that to our advantage. Those of you out there that agree that a change needs to be made in one direction or another, bring it in a very calm manner to the superintendents, to the show managers, to the board, wherever you can. Talk amongst yourselves. Let's push this tide in a direction that betters our industry. We have the masses that are listening to this episode right now, that if we collectively make an effort, and each one of you out there makes an effort to better this industry by starting that grassroots discussion and approaching the management in these shows or the breeders or whatever change that we're talking about, or self-regulate just a little bit. We talked about maybe bring a ring camera into the barn, and there's going to be some things that maybe won't happen because that camera's there. If we all step up and do just a little bit more to make this industry better, we are all going to benefit from it, and the next generation will benefit. Ryan, thank you for coming up with this episode main topic title. I'm sure I will visit with you in Houston and a lot this week because of everything that's unfolding. I apologize to our listeners that by the time you listen to this one, the current events is no longer current events, except for justice for Fauci or whatever we're going to do to him. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?